All right, welcome to our next session. This one's called Implement FIDO2 for a Cloud SaaS First Enterprise. Our speaker this time is Jiphun Satapathy from, he's Senior Director of Corporate Security at Snowflake. Welcome.
Thank you, David. Hello, everyone. Can you guys hear me fine? Everybody? Great, awesome. All right, let me just do a quick, okay, perfect. That is there. And I'm going to try this. Okay, just a quick check. Cool, thank you. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining this session and welcome to this session and willing to spend time in this 20-25 minutes where I'm going to discuss about the process, the steps, the experience that we dealt with at Snowflake when we rolled out FIDO2 as a MFA auth scheme. What are some of the key challenges we faced, how we solved some of the challenges is what we're going to discuss about today. A little bit about myself. My name is, as you know, my name is Jiphun Satapathy. I'm a senior director at Snowflake, where I head the corporate security team. Keeping Snowflake secured is my team's mission. Prior to Snowflake, I was with AWS security specifically, where I led the product security team, supporting all the cloud, at least 50 to 60% of all the cloud services. Before that, I was with Visa, where I led the digital and mobile platforms division and then their security, and before that I was with Intel. So been in this security, engineering, security, cyber security space for a bit, about 15 years. I'm passionate about solving hardcore problems. That's what keeps me, up in the night, as well as keeps me passionate about solving these challenges. Been associated with FIDO for a bit. Recent one is where we rolled out FIDO2 as our MFA scheme at Snowflake. So moving on, what are some of the key takeaways that I hope you all take away from this session? Let's look at a little bit of history where we have been, what's been our journey in regards to auth schemes that the industry has been following. What are some of the key problems we wanted to solve by implementing FIDO2 at Snowflake? I would like to highlight that. I would share with you the architecture that we implemented at our place to go support that MFA mechanism using FIDO2. What are some of the key challenges we faced? What are some of the key steps we took when we rolled it out? It's not a straightaway solution that some of you, those who have been associated with, would know. And finally, I would like to discuss about what are some of the key outcomes we have seen. What are some of the results that we have seen? Cool. So let's talk about a little bit of auth schemes that we have seen. The journey. So obviously, 90s and early 2000s, we were primarily focused on passwords using Salt, CAPTCHA, and early 2000s, 2010-ish, where we were talking about more like 2FA. That was not enough, so we introduced concepts like MFA, and in 2010s, when mobile phones obviously, took the primary, one of the primary devices for people to use, we introduced, we experienced push notification. So if you look at it, pretty much in the last 2 decades of this century, we have been using MFA, 2FA first, then MFA, and recently, most of the cases you will see that push-based notification is what's being widely used as one of the top secured mechanism to go implement MFA for your auth purpose. The next phase of innovation that's happening right now, and some of the industries they have accepted, is being passwordless, right? One of the key challenges we want to address is how do we want to go into that passwordless world? And some of the solutions or services we use at Snowflake beyond identity, which has helped us go passwordless. There are many other solutions as well, which is great. We got rid of passwords from the user, so that aspect is taken care. But MFA still continues to be the push-based notification that we continue to use that. So the next phase of, so there is innovation that needs to happen in regards to MFA, because we'll talk about the problem statement next. Even the push-based MFA is prone to phishing attack. So how do we reduce that? That's where the next phase of innovation that you will see that's happening in some of the industries that are adopting FIDO2 as the mechanism to implement their MFA, in addition to being passwordless. That's where the journey that we are in. So Snowflake as a company until last year was somewhere in the somewhat going passwordless but still using push notification. We have not completely got rid of push notification yet, but we are in that journey, and I'll tell you why we have not completely gotten rid of that. But our journey, the current posture is passwordless with FIDO2 based MFA is where we want to be. Cool. So what are some of the problems that we wanted to solve by implementing this when we started our journey? Obviously, all of us should be aware phishing continues to be the one of the top attack scenarios for malware, ransomware, and credential stealing or man-in-the-middle kind of attacks. Why? Because it targets the weakest link in this whole solution or end-to-end experience is users. It doesn't matter how much training you provide, how many tools you implement to educate people. There will be a percentage of your employee base, they will click on those emails. It's just inevitable. Some of the reports that you might have all seen, some of the reports which says 75% of the organization around the world experience phishing attack in some form or fashion. 90% of data breaches are happening due to the phishing attack that we see. And even if we have implemented MFA using push-based notification, it still is prone to a man-in-the-middle and phishing attack. So how do we address that? So not just the security problems. One of the problems we wanted to address in our ecosystem is we continue to use the secondary device, which is your phone. So we expect people to have that secondary device available to do push notification. And anytime people change their phone or get a new phone, then we do get IT tickets on that. So one of the advantages of going FIDO2 also reduced the number of tickets that our IT support was getting because there is no dependency on the secondary device anymore, because you can use your primary device to go complete that MFA as part of the auth mechanism. Cool. So this is a comparison that I would like to show you. How does it look in our lay of the land, and with FIDO2, how did we change? So if you see, just let's walk through a very basic workflow. Let's say an employee is using company-provided laptop to access some of the SaaS applications like Gmail or Salesforce or G Suite or G Drive or whatever it is, right? So how does the flow look like? The person opens the account, tries to log in. In our case, what we have done is we have onboarded Okta as our primary SSO. So obviously, the auth gets redirected to Okta. In our case, we have also gone one step forward where we are saying we are passwordless. So for that, we have introduced Beyond Identity, which kind of works as more of an IDP for us. So Okta is obviously going to pass that auth to Beyond Identity. Beyond Identity is a passwordless mechanism auth. It has an agent running on the device, on the laptop. So it makes a check with the device, verifies that it's the right user. Then what it does is passes that act back to Okta. Now, once Okta has validated through Beyond Identity that it's the right user, it now needs to go implement or execute the MFA flow. In that case, what it does is basically sends a notification to your phone. Okta Verify is the solution that Okta has. And then you act that as a user, and boom, that's done. That's your access. That is how the overall flow look like. And what we did is we wanted to replace that with FIDO2. So as you can see, we completely got rid of the need for a phone, and because that is where it was prone to the phishing attack scenario and also needed that device. What we said is we are going to get rid of that. Instead, we are going to use local authenticators with the device that we have, something like Touch ID for Macs or Windows Hello for Windows devices. So you can see the flow doesn't require a phone anymore. There is not a significant change to the architecture or design in regards to integrating this solution. Only thing changes is the user experience in this case. And in this case, user experience gets actually better because you don't have to go and get another additional or external device to complete your MFA flow. So what are some of the key benefits that we got when we rolled it out? First one is obviously a phishing attack. Unless the attacker has access to the physical device, it is impossible to mount a phishing attack on your FIDO2 based MFA. And unless it is more of a, you literally have gotten access to that primary device, which is obviously, at that point of time, all bets are off. The risks or the likelihood of somebody mounting a phishing attack goes down significantly. And so that makes it unphishable, the MFA flow that you have. In addition to not just on the security front, we also got better user experience, because what happens is anytime we have to deal with somebody brings a new phone, or somebody adds a new additional device for their MFA, then we need to go do that MFA reset, which is again going to add some additional cost to your IT support team, which you got rid of that. Because of this. So two-prong approach that we take. It's not just the enhancing the security, but the UX. So overall, this is the approach on a very high level. I was just giving you what is the overall approach that we took in regards to in regards to what drove us to get into FIDO2, how would that architecture look like, and what are some of the key benefits. But the real challenge is how do we roll it out, right? It's not a one size fits all, or it's not like going and asking your SSO provider saying, hey, give me an ability to go authenticate with FIDO2. As you all know that it's still not widely adopted, or there is a large chunk of applications which are critical applications. It's not like any of the nice to have applications. It's still not FIDO2 compliant. So how do we ensure that we want to not just give this as a more of an option, rather enforce it? End of the day, we want to enforce it, but we cannot enforce it in a blanket statement that everybody must use FIDO2, because that's the challenge that we have to deal with. So we took few steps, and this is what I would like to share with you. Hopefully, it will help you either resonate with some of the challenges that you might be facing in your lay of the land, or hopefully it will shed some light in regards to what are some of the key steps that you can take. So before we go roll it out, what we did is we took actually a four-step approach. Step one, first determine the readiness of your ecosystem. Can you, obviously, we want to get to a state where we want to say, we want to enforce FIDO2 based MFA across all apps, all devices, all users. But are we ready for that? So in order for us to determine whether we were ready to go achieve that, what we did, some of the key factors that we considered is what kind of apps and agents that people are using. When I'm talking about agents, is it like a browser to access the apps, or is it a thick client that is installed on those laptops or devices that they are using? That is one factor that you have to consider, because that would determine your compatibility with FIDO2, whether you can enforce or not. What are operating systems that you are using? In general, in our at Snowflake, we are kind of 95% Mac house and 5% probably Windows house. So it gave us a little bit of advantage there in regards to compatibility. But one of the factors that you should consider is what operating systems that you are using. Of course, then not just the laptops, but also the mobile devices. What kind of operating system that you need to go support? What kind of authenticators are out there on your devices? Touch ID, Windows Hello, YubiKeys. What other things that you can consider? And if you are using an SSO, in our case, we were using SSO, so we needed to ensure that does it support FIDO2? Initially, when we started the journey, it was not. Now it does. We influenced them to implement that, but that was one of the factors that we needed to consider. So what we did is we did a bit of an analysis. Yeah, we did a bit of analysis to understand what is our lay of the land look like. What percentage of our that agent and operating system combination we are compatible. So we saw about 75% plus. As I said, one of the key advantages we had is around Mac OS, because that was our primary platform for people to use. But we did that analysis, and obviously this is not static. This keeps on changing, because as employee count grows, different types of applications grow. We obviously this lay of the land will change, but this is a snapshot that we took before we started our journey. Is 75% plus is where we saw that it should be fully supported. We should be able to go and enable that and enforce FIDO2 based MFA. We saw about another, how much? About 10-12% where we saw that it has to use an external authenticator instead of a authenticator that is available with the device, because of the Linux operating system or some of the key factors. And then we identified there is about 10-15% of this agent OS combination we will not be able to support. We will not be able to enable that because of the dependency on the application or dependency on the operating system. So how do we do that? Obviously, so this is where the key decision we made, that if we want to go in that journey, it's going to be a journey. It's not like we can say tomorrow or whenever we end rolling out FIDO2, 100% of our all ecosystem is enforced with FIDO2. We just could not achieve that, and I don't think that's been possible for anybody to claim unless you have a very small set of platforms or applications that you're in. So we took that journey, we took that bet, saying, Now that we are seeing about 85% of our ecosystem where we can enable FIDO2 and enforce FIDO2, so we marched on that direction. The second factor, second step that we took is create basically a process or a framework when you are going to go adopt. What are some of the key factors you want to consider? Again, coming back to OS and what are some of the key authenticators that you want to support? I just want to do a quick time check. Okay. So what kind of authenticators that we have? So we basically decided that for Macs, we are going to go use Touch ID. Luckily, we have fairly newer Macs, so they do support FIDO2. We have a small subset of platforms or Mac OS devices where they did not have FIDO2 compliant authenticators, so we're going to go phase it out. For Windows Hello, for Windows devices, we're going to use Windows Hello. Android, we were planning to use fingerprint or PIN. Similarly for YubiKeys or any combination of these that we created. And then we also determined that a list of applications that we really cannot support, and we cannot get rid of that. So one approach is to say, you know what, since this application is not supporting or not compliant with FIDO2, let's not use that application. You will find many of the applications, I don't want to take names here, but there are applications which are critical applications that you absolutely cannot get rid of. For example, one of the applications that we use where secrets management, key management is not FIDO2 compliant. We just could not get rid of that. So how do you do that? So you got to put that in the exception list, and over a period of time influence that. If it is homegrown, that's great, you can do it. But if it is a third party or vendor provided, then influence them to go be compliant with FIDO2 so that you can enforce that as well. The third step we did is, instead of going all in and say, you know what, we are going to enforce FIDO2 based MFA from a certain date, we took a phased approach. What we did is we put it as an option. We enabled that as an option, saying, you know what, it is an option available, up to you. You know, you can continue to use Okta Verify and push notification on your phone, but we have another option, which is FIDO2. You can use your biometrics-based Touch ID to go work. And we saw about 60% of auths that were happening through Okta. Even if we did not enforce, people used it because they didn't have to depend on the external device. So it's a great driver. It's a great example where you want to raise the security posture, where users are also with you because they are even if they don't appreciate the security benefit, they definitely appreciate the user experience that they are getting. So we have not enforced it yet because we are still going in that journey, but we have seen more than 60% of our auth is happening through FIDO2 already. And we anticipate that it's not going to be 100% ever because there will be some apps that will not be FIDO2 compliant, right? But 60% without enforcement is a great start. Second step that we did is go identify some of the applications or what are some of the key critical applications that we are not going to be FIDO2 enforced. So what do we do with that? So we're basically going to go create an exception list, configure them in our SS so that these apps, access to these apps can be out of FIDO2 and live with it and go influence that. And the last step is where I was talking about. We have SSO as Okta as our SSO, but it did not have the ability to go enforce that when we started this journey early this year, late last year. So we partnered with them and influenced them to give us that ability, which they did along with other customers, and we have adopted the new engine, which has helped us distinguish which apps must go through the FIDO2-based MFA, which apps can go through the Okta Verify-based, because we needed that ability, which we didn't have. And the last step that we did is, again, as you would relate to that, is you would not be able to successfully, drive a change without measuring it, right? So one of the key things that we did is when we went ahead and enforced enrollment, not usage, but enrollment. So what we did is anybody who joins the company gets 3 days to go enroll with FIDO2. Okay. Technically, they should be able to do it in day one, but we just wanted to give them a grace period here in case any issues that they face. And what we have seen, as you can see, we started around February, and by in a month and a half, we were able to enroll pretty much the entire company. Now we are pretty much close to 100% is what our current state. So everybody in the company is now enrolled with FIDO2 as the MFA, which is great start. I don't have a chart, it's not included here, but we are also measuring what's that percentage of auth that is happening through FIDO2, where we are seeing more than 60% of that going through FIDO2-based MFA. This is another point that I want to make. One of the benefits that we got at Snowflake is because we are using Snowflake as a service for our data warehouse. So one of the challenges that you will face when you're going to go start integrating these applications or doing that analysis, which apps are supported, which apps are not supported, the benefit that we got because of our security data lake architecture that we have put in place, which gives us data from our SSO, which gives us data from, let's say, Jamf, if you're using for Mac, which gives us data from our MDM services, where we can correlate to determine what portion of our user base we can enforce this solution and what are some of the key challenges or key applications that will remain out of that enforcement. And we could do that because of the architecture that we have with Snowflake. Again, happy to provide more information if you have anybody has any questions on this. But one of the key concepts that is introduced with Snowflake specifically is connected apps. So what we didn't have to do is we didn't have to really write APIs or write scripts to ingest data from all the sources. Rather, it's already been given as a platform, as Snowflake as a platform. How am I doing with the time? Okay, cool. So the last slide here that I would like to conclude, what are some of the key benefits that we have seen? So this took us probably about, I would say, 3 quarters right now for us. Started with the journey when we took a goal that we are going to go adopt FIDO2 based MFA and roll it out and enforce it. So the solution, and it's still, we cannot still claim that it is completely done because we are still in that journey. We expect it to be done by end of this year. So, but in the meantime, what are some of the key use cases, key benefits that we have seen is 97% of our use cases now are protected due to us deploying this solution, FIDO2. We understand that some of the desktop applications are not supported or not compliant with FIDO2, but it's okay because the key risk of phishing is not that prevalent with your desktop applications, right? Because your auth is happening right on that device. So unless somebody has got access to that physical device, it's very difficult to mount a phishing attack on a desktop client like an Office 365 client or something like that. We have seen improvement, 87% of user experience based on our survey that we get from using biometrics versus phone for their push notification. We still have some of the cases where we have either legacy systems or operating system where we do not have local authenticator on that device. About 10% of our user base is still, we are shipping them YubiKeys, which is perfectly fine, and over a period of time that's going to go down. So these are some of the key benefits that we have seen. Yeah, that is it. That's pretty much what I had from for this presentation. So one of the key challenges, the key point that I want to make here is that when you go roll it out, I think setting the expectation with your stakeholders, with your users is key here. One of the key learnings that we had when we rolled it out, we actually thought it would be much easier than what we felt in regards to rolling it out. The key challenge here is the ecosystem, the support of applications or the compliance of the applications that we have. So if you are using a set of critical applications that are not FIDO2 compliant, you will have to figure out how do you deal with that, how do you prevent it, how do you enforce it. And so set the expectation right, let's do that analysis whether it is possible and what are some of the key use cases that you may not be able to go enforce. So with that, happy to take any question. Do I have any time left? Or thank you guys.
Probably have like a minute left if anyone's got a question. We got someone at the back, the lucky winner of the question.
Hi, it's Yari Takala from Meta. I'm doing a similar rollout at Meta, and so you've elected to use platform authenticators on Mac or Apple devices. How do you bootstrap trust when an employee receives a new device? And maybe if you have time for a second question about passkeys and what you think about them.
Yeah, I think that's a very good question. The second part is actually interesting. The first part is, for the bootstrap, we still rely on Okta Verify, by the way. So we do that, and let me know if I'm answering your question exactly the way, the point that you're raising. So we continue to use Okta Verify, that push notification-based auth for the first time to go bootstrap that. But we are working with Okta to figure out how to even get rid of that. So that is first. Second part, we have not. So yeah, that's it's a big point, big discussion. We have still not gone ahead and done that analysis of passkeys. We are exploring, but currently our plan is, so we don't have to do it, but I don't know the future how it's going to look like. Currently, Okta is helping us, our SSO is helping us go address, because they are FIDO2 compliant, they are not using a passkey kind of mode, so we are fine with that. We have not done that analysis, but that's the work that we are working on right now.
All right. Well, thank you again, Jiphun.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.